Hi, I'm Jon Leslie. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can run your entire game studio in Favro and why it can make all the difference. The game industry is moving from a project mindset to a product mindset. Where games used to be thought of as projects with set production start and end dates, they've made the transition to products that, depending on their success, are continuously developed and supported with new content and features for many years after initial release. A game is now an enduring product with a much longer life cycle. For game studios, this means far less compartmentalization. Not only do all disciplines need to work in tandem, but now continuous collaborative planning must occur between all teams, departments, and levels of a studio. Overall studio agility, not just team-level agility, is now critical. Thankfully, the transparency and silo-breaking flow required to run the entire business of modern game development is built into Favro. In this video, I'll show you how a single platform can be used to run all aspects of your studio, ranging from leadership to development to quality assurance to live ops to marketing, even supporting fast-growing recruitment efforts and external development. I'll also highlight some recent feature releases like automations, collection folders, and shareable links. It's now easier than ever to map your entire game studio's organizational structure to Favro thanks to the newly released collection folders. Here in this game studio example, you can see that I've used collection folders to first organize this studio by levels of the organization, first the leadership entire studio level, then by each game that's currently in development or running as a live production. Here in this sample game studio, we've got Shadow Recon and this other fictional game, Zombie Royale. If I open up these collection folders, you see that I've added the actual collections that live within these collection folders. So this leadership studio level collection contains HR and recruiting, some production metrics, a studio executive dashboard, and a utilization and capacity collection. Now, if I open up one of the game production folders, you can see that all the teams are represented here that make up this particular game production, Shadow Recon. Here's the Shadow Recon art team, a feature team collection, another feature team collection, the Shadow Recon live ops team, and a Shadow Recon producer dashboard. Now, we'll get into all the specific team level and game level and studio level collections later on in the video, but just suffice it to say at this point that collection folders can contain all of them. Now here, below the different studio organizational levels, I've broken down and used collection folders to organize by discipline. So you can see we have a collection for art, community, design, development, production, recruitment, world building, etc., etc. If I open up one of these, you can see that this art collection folder contains all of the various art team collections, making it easy for the different teams and disciplines to find exactly the collections that they're looking for. Now, creating these collection folders is as simple as clicking any one of these pluses on the left navigation pane and going to New Folder. First, I need to give it a name. Maybe there's a new game we're going to start production on. Select a color for it. Do I want this to be starred, meaning it's going to live at the top of my personal account when I log into Favro? I can also add the individual collections directly from here. So let's add this Agent 42 art dashboard, the level team, an art team, and this art outsourcing team, for example. Then I simply click Create, and there we have it. We have another collection folder, and since I started, it's going to live at the very top of my personal navigation bar over here on the left. After successfully mapping your studio's organizational structure to Favro using collection folders, it's then time to create the actual collections themselves. And we'll begin with team-level collections. So whether it's an art asset team, feature development team, live ops team, etc., every team should have its own collection. Each team-specific collection will be a container for all of that team's work. For example, if I open up this Shadow Recon folder and go to Shadow Recon Feature Team 1's collection, you can see that they have a backlog full of cards. These cards can be clicked. In this case, these cards represent features. You can add whatever custom fields you want, enter all of that data specific to each card, have a conversation directly on the card, maybe write the design, what this feature should be, user stories, create tasks, assign at the task level to people, drag and drop images. This becomes a full collaborative workspace similar to a Google Doc for team members to, number one, figure out what this feature should be, and number two, actually develop and create it. And as you can see over here on the right, there's a full conversation and comment system built into each and every card, effectively having the communication, having the conversation related to this feature in this case, where the work is happening. So in the backlog, this is where the teams will organize their work, prioritize their work, size their work. Over here on the right, once that work is ready to start, once those features are ready to begin development, this particular team is working in Scrum. You can see they have a sprint board over here with all of their work flowing from left to right through these various stages, which they configure themselves. They've also chosen to have a visual roadmap indicating when features are starting development and ending development. You can even drag and drop between the different board views like this. Again, with the cards staying in both places. So the way this works, when a new feature is added, for example, say pick locks, we want to give this a release tag, expect it to release, maybe prioritize it, give it a relative size like this. Then when the team is ready to work on it, maybe in their next upcoming sprint, they would pull this feature from the backlog into their sprint board like this. And you can see that, again, because of Favro's unique ability to have the cards in multiple places at the same time, that particular feature card, Pick Locks, exists in both places, both here in the backlog and also here on this board. If we look at relations, as I move this card from sprint backlog to doing to testing, I can see in this relations column back in the backlog that it's tracking the actual progress of this card relative to that team's, in this case, sprint board. It's also important to point out that the boards in Favro have multiple views, so I can quickly switch from maybe a Kanban view to a Sheets view to visualize those same cards, those same features in a different way, and to a timeline view. Built into each and every board are also a series of charts. Maybe if I want to see a burn down by points, like this, or if I want to see a cumulative flow diagram like this. Again, it's the same cards, just visualized in different ways. Now, something that is also very unique to Favro is the ability to have boards in multiple collections at the same time. An example of why this is so powerful is, say this feature team has to work in collaboration with a live ops team. Instead of having to jump back and forth to their single board on a screen collection, they can quickly just add that team's board directly to their collection. So now we have both the feature team's board here in this collection, but we've also added the live ops team Kanban board from their specific collection. So what this allows you to do is, say when a feature is ready for the live ops team to actually get involved, maybe do some automated testing. Once it gets to the testing stage here, that team can work in tandem on the same feature on the same card with the development team, simply by taking the card representing that feature, in this case again Pick Locks, and dragging and dropping it to the live ops team's board. Now again, thanks to relations displayed on the card, I can see that from a development team, feature team perspective, it's currently at testing. And if I turn on relations up here on this board, I'm able to see from a live ops team perspective that this particular feature is currently at selected. when it moves to scheduled or testing, they'll be able to see that change automatically up here on the feature team board. Another example of a team level collection would be an art asset team. Here, this art asset team is working in a Kanban flow-based way in their art asset pipeline board, and they're working out of this art asset list or art asset backlog, where the same type of thing as with the feature team, they can commit to work out of that backlog simply by dragging and dropping and pulling that work through their predefined pipeline flow, like so. Now, an internal art asset team might have to work in sync with an external art asset outsourcer. In that case, an art director dashboard could come in handy, which I can quickly jump to directly from the board here. In this particular example, this art director is managing all of the art assets out of an art master backlog broken down into internal art assets and external art assets. The internal art assets feeding this internal art team here, and within this very same collection, he's able to feed out of that same art asset backlog this external art team here. And again, thanks to relations, being able to track the progress of all of those art assets, both developed internally and externally via relations, directly from the backlog. And a last team level example would be a QA teams collection. We'll look at this internal QA teams collection here. And you can see that they've created a backlog of bugs to replace maybe a pre-existing legacy bug system. Again, doing all of their bug tracking and bug work directly in Favro. Anytime a bug is found, they can enter it in here and fill out all of these fields with some predefined settings filling in, as you can see here. And again, speaking to cross-team collaboration, they have the ability to take those bugs once found and drag and drop them directly into a feature team's backlog for actual fixing. Making it very clear that these are the bugs related to the features that this team has actually developed. And then that team, again, once they're ready to actually start working on these bugs, fixing these bugs, they simply drag and drop them from their backlog within their own collections to their sprint boards in this case. And once again, since the boards exist in multiple places at the same time, that Shadow Recon feature team is going to be primarily looking at those bugs that are coming in their backlog in their own team level collection like this. Now let's take a look at game dashboard collections. These are perfect for producers and directors who need to see the big picture. A game dashboard collection provides a single high-level overview of the entire live production, empowering them to drive priorities, set goals, create roadmaps, and track development progress all from a single screen across all of the teams of teams in aggregate necessary to create and support a live video game production. As you can see here in this sample Shadow Recon producer dashboard, it aggregates all of the backlogs, including the feature backlog, the art asset backlog, external art assets, and even other departments that this development team needs to coordinate and synchronize with for a live production, including live ops, marketing, community feedback, and of course bugs and QA. Also in this collection, this dashboard level collection, we have an overall game roadmap. We also have a section for team meetings if we're providing transparency to the entire team to this collection. This is a great place to come and see the big picture themselves. I'll get back to that particular board in a second. Also, because the boards can live in multiple places, these producers have chosen to bring in the team level boards themselves, so they don't have to jump back and forth between multiple collections to see the details. They can see what the feature teams are doing. They can see what the art teams are doing. Live ops, even recruitment, all driving and visualizing tracking progress from this single screen collection. Now let's take a quick look at another new feature that's recently released in Favro called automations. So back up to this Shadow Recon Team Meetings board. If I open this up, you can see here are all the recurring meetings for this particular team, maybe keeping the entire teams of teams on the same cadence. So in order to help with this, take out some of the busy work of scheduling and creating these meetings, that's when automations can come into play. If I go to the automations gallery for this board, I can see that there are numerous automation templates available to help you so you don't have to create these automations from scratch. Here in this case, I've already created a simple automation to automatically create a recurring sprint review. In this case, we're going to have a recurring sprint review every 2 weeks on Monday at 9 a.m. Maybe for the entire teams of teams to review all the progress across all of the teams. And we're simply using a card template to represent that sprint review and automatically create that card with all of the contents of what has to happen in that sprint review automatically created, again, every 2 weeks for the team. Now, this is just one simple example of how automations can be a massive time saver for production. Everything from automating the creation of recurring meetings, as we've seen here, to automating the flow of producer reviews, to creating automated release plans and burn downs that update themselves when each team completes features and releases content. Another newly released Favro feature, which can also save a lot of time and help communicate progress to maybe people who don't have a Favro account or login, is Shareable Links. Suppose a producer or director needs to share game dashboard information with executives or publishers that don't have an active Favro account. In that case, they can use the new Shareable Links to give secure instant access to either specific boards or entire collections. For example, here, I can select Create Shareable Link for this entire collection, and I have options to say, do I want this to be restricted to just members of this actual dashboard collection, or do I want to be able to share this to anybody within my domain, which provides a level of sharing security, again, without people having to have a direct account in Favro. And you also have the option to share publicly with anybody outside of your organization, although this link is secret and not searchable. Now let's take it up another level to studio dashboard collections. Studio leadership requires the ability to set and drive business initiatives, measure and track performance of all their live games, and dive down into the details whenever there's an issue requiring their attention. Favro Executive Studio dashboards make this a one-stop shop reality, like the one we're looking at here. In this sample Studio Executive dashboard, we can see that we have a Studio Initiatives backlog up here at the top. This is full of all of the actual business initiatives driving the business of running a game studio forward. So we have the current development projects, those games that are currently live productions, some new IP initiatives, maybe some technology initiatives, facility, recruitment, so on and so forth. Again, everything to drive the business of running a game studio. Now these are going to be flowing through a studio portfolio Kanban. So very similar to doing feature or art asset work. You'd simply take a new initiative like this one, drag and drop it out of the backlog, and pull that through to the various stages. Once something is set to in progress, maybe it passes the review and analysis budgeting phase, makes it to in progress, you can actually take this card, open it up. This is the card representing that business initiative now, and break it down to its own board or backlog. In this case, let's make it a backlog in a Sheets view. Maybe pull it over here to the left pane, and maybe build out the pillars of what we would expect this particular new IP to achieve. Then take that backlog and add or move it to the actual team level collection, or maybe game level collection where we'd like to have this particular new IP maybe begin pre-production, or at least an exploratory phase. Like so. And again, this link indicates that this now exists in both places. So back here at our Studio Executive Dashboard, you can see that as well as the Studio Initiatives Backlog and the Studio Portfolio Kanban, this dashboard also contains an overall Studio roadmap with those same business initiatives maybe on a timeline view like this. It also includes a Studio development sprint/release plan, visualizing the development ongoing support for those games over time and their subsequent releases. You can click on any one of these, open up this particular card that represents Sprint 1 for Shadow Recon Release 1, and you can see that this is linked directly to that sprint. So if the executive team needs to dive down into the details, they can do that. These are all the different places that sprint board exists, and they could go directly to the feature team collection and see it there if they like. In addition to this backlog and board that exists solely in this Executive Studio dashboard, they've also pulled in backlogs and boards from other team level collections or game level dashboard collections. So here we can see we have the Shadow Recon feature backlog. We also have the Zombie Royale feature backlog, as well as their game roadmaps, as you see here. Now, if we also wanted to see what marketing was doing, for example, we could simply click Add from another collection and pull in the marketing team's backlog like so. And again, using relations, we can see exactly the status of all these campaigns and their deliverables. Also here in the Studio Executive Dashboard, since fast-growing studios are constantly recruiting, we have a studio recruitment pipeline where we can visualize all of the new hires flowing from selected resumes to screening calls, to team interviews, to reference check, all the way through to hired. And as you can see here, again, another example of automations, as soon as I pulled Vera into hired, it automatically added her via automations to an onboarding flow, which we can see here. And now the onboarding process can begin and be tracked and visualized the same way that the hiring and recruitment process can be visualized, flowing through these various stages. And again, thanks to relations, back up here, we can see directly from this recruitment pipeline that from an onboarding perspective, Vera is currently at the orientation phase. And there you have a very strong example of a studio-level executive dashboard. Finally, with many studios fostering a player-first mindset as one of their core cultural values, it's imperative to keep players up to date with current and upcoming feature and content releases, as well as maybe upcoming events, competitions, and modes. A Favro public collection is the perfect way to create this real-time player hub. Here you can see Phoenix Labs shows us how it's done with their Dauntless Community Hub and Roadmap, created directly in Favro. This connects ongoing development directly with the game's more than 25 million players. If I open up this roadmap section, for example, you can see they give a description of how this board works and all of the features and content moving from concept to what's currently in production, what's being tested, what's live, and a backlog of upcoming content and features. If you click on any one of these cards, players can get more details and even add comments. It's the perfect way to build a stronger connection with your player base, and it all lives directly in the same tool where development and running your studio is happening. Let's recap. Games are now live products requiring continuous development, releases, service, and response to player feedback. With all the moving pieces and the vital need for all studio teams and departments to work together, managing it all with a single app makes sense. Favro is a single collaborative planning platform that any team can use and scales to any size studio. Favro's core building blocks of cards, boards, collections, and relations, along with the recently added automations, collection folders, and shareable links, make it the perfect platform for running your entire game studio. Thanks, and good luck with Favro.